Hi folks, welcome back to the Tabletop's Edge and our last Blitzkrieg campaign playthrough. Last time out, we saw the 2nd Infantry Division up north try to get a second activation and fail, as well as the German 326th Volks Grenadier Division fail their snafu check. Further south, though, at the other end of the line, 7th Army got into the attack by activating the 212th and 276th Infantry Divisions. They crossed over the river and hit 4th Infantry Division. And while the 4th is hard pressed and stretched thinly, they managed to give better than they got. So we're going to pick up the action now with the next German activation, and they are going to come back to the north, and we're going to activate the 12th Volks Grenadier Division here along the road and see if they can have any success in penetrating the lines of the 99th here. So let's see how this works out. The 12th Volks Grenadier Division is one of the better German infantry divisions. It has an action rating of 4, and it actually has an armor unit. It's a dual unit on map here. It doesn't have any support as yet, but and it is not fresh, but it is fatigue 0. So they're going to be tasked with trying to break open a hole here along the main road to the west. Their trains are on the map here, stacked with 3rd Fallschirmjäger, which means the streams will be crossed. The MSR is complete. They are not going to be entering prepared defense, so it's onto the snafu roll. They have 0 fatigue, no coordination. They're not mixed. They get +1 for the game specific. Their trains are at optimal distance, which is gives them a +2. They are not ghosted. They are crossing the stream, so it's back down to +1, and they are not using track. So a +1 on the snafu roll for 12th Volks Grenadier. They roll an 8, which will give them a full activation. That means they will have 4 plus 2 additional artillery points, give them a total of 6 artillery points to use this activation, and 2 objective markers. These are both going to go right on top of the Crossroads here, because that is going to put all 3 battalions in the objective zone for this activation. Now, how are we going to start this? Well, let's start with the Vorals unit here. It's got a 14 movement on its move side. However, because of the special rule about getting out of the blocks for the Germans, we have to subtract 4 from this, so it actually only has 10 that it can use. It's going to spend 1 on the track here, 2, 3. This bridge is actually an overpass that had been destroyed and had not been completed by the time the attack kicked off, so that won't be open to us until tomorrow. With 1, 2, 3, it's going to be 5 to here, 6 up the road, and then 8 on the rail line. Actually, let's, 8 on the rail line. Now, we have entered an AV zone of control from both of these battalions because they have some AV support. The Comp Group Holtz is going to then do an engagement to try and drop the support first of the battalion at the Crossroads here. First of the 394th, the 99th Infantry Division has a 3-strength tank destroyer battalion in support. Add that to its action rating of 3, gives it a 6. For Comp Group Holtz, you can see AV of 2, action rating of 4 is also a 6. However, they are in a double objective zone, so that's going to give them a +1. And none of the target only modifiers apply. So a +1 on the engagement table, and this is the target is support. Wow, oh, that was a good roll there. Boxcars, which becomes a 13, which results in target loss and drop. That is going to kill 1 step of the 99th Infantry Division support, leaving it with a single step, and then this unit is also going to have dropped its support. Now, the first fire event is taken up by, used by Holtz to drop their support. He has one more fire event left, and he's still in an AV ZOC. So he's going to attempt to drop the support of the 3rd of the 394th. This is going to be the exact same scenario as far as the engagement goes. It's a +1. And they rolled extremely well again, an 11. +1 is 12. That is a target loss and drop. So not only did Kampf Group Holtz manage to drop the support of both of these battalions, but they also killed the only 2 steps of support in the entire 99th Infantry Division, which means none of the 99th's other units are going to have support until and unless some AV replacements show up that will allow them to rebuild their tank destroyer battalion. So that was a very, very successful opening for 12th Volks Grenadier. He is now stopped because he's used his second fire event. He's not finished, so he's still able to spot for artillery barrages or assist other units in making an attack. Now, I'm going to go ahead and mark off the losses for the 99th Tank Destroyer Battalion, and then we'll pick back up with the 12th Volks Grenadier Infantry moving forward. All right, now that we have that record keeping taken care of, we will continue with the activation. And we're going to start off with the 1st Battalion of the 27th, moving up here for 1, 2, and then 3, 4, where it will launch an attack on 3rd of the 394th here, and it will be assisted by Kampf Group Holtz. So for the attack, the attacker is action rating 4. We are going to spend 1 point of our artillery in a suppression barrage. They're being assisted. They are in the double objective zone, which will give them a +1. They do not, however, have any support. So that's going to be a total of 8 for the attacker. On the defense, the defender is no longer supported. He is in a prepared defense, which will be +1, and he is in terrain here, which will give him another +1. So we're looking at a 5 on the defensive side to an 8 on the attacking side. Net die roll modifier is an +3 for the attack. All right, that is a 4. +3 is a 7. That is an A1, attacker is going to lose 1 step, and a situational retreat for the defender, which, because he is in prepared defense, he ignores the retreat and instead takes a step loss. So it turns out to be an even exchange, 1 step loss on each of the battalions there. And Holtz is now done. I'll just go ahead and he's finished. And we will continue, and hopefully that we'll have more success with these other battalions here. We are going to move up the Pioneers. 1, 2, 3. No. And go. We're going to do this. We need to get 1, 2. Okay, yeah. 1. Nope, that's not going to cut it. We need to get there. We can't get there. Let's try it this way. We'll go 2, 4, and then we'll go 2, 3. And the 2nd of the 48th is going to launch an attack here, assisted by the 1st of the 48th. We will use another point of artillery for a suppression barrage. And that's going to be very similar to what we had down there. +1 for the double tap, +3 for the artillery, +4 for the assist, gives us an 8. And that's going to be 3 AR, +1 for prepared defense, +1 for terrain is a 5. It's another +3 attack for the 12th Volks Grenadier. And they roll another 4, which is another 7, which is an attacker loses 1 and a situational retreat, which is converted to a step loss. So another exchange here between the 2nd of the 48th and the 2nd of the 394th. So, however hot they started off with Holtz's engagements, they've cooled off considerably. Now, what do we have left here? We have bicycle guys. Can they get... No, they're not going to be able to. 2, 4. Well, we're going to end up, and I hate doing this, but we're going to end up having to stack a couple of German units. So let's hope that this attack works. The Pioneers will go 1, 2.5, and then the 2nd of the 27th will go 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 2nd of the 27th will attack the Crossroads, assisted by the Pioneer Battalion underneath them. And we have, yet again, another artillery point being spent in a suppression barrage. That gives us +1 for the double tap, +3 for the artillery, +4 for the assist. And on the American side, it's going to be 3, +1 for prepared defense, +1 for terrain, total of 5. So yet another +3. Let's see if the Germans can manage something better than a 4. And they do. It comes in at a 9. +3 is a 12, which will get the job done. A 12 is a D1, so the defender will lose 1 step, and it is a mandatory retreat. Now that is going to take the defender, and with the mandatory retreats, they will actually come off map. Let's see how they've changed this up. Hold on just a second. All right, sorry about that. They've introduced a new term in HQ Refuge with the version 2.0. I just want to make sure I got that right. Now, with the mandatory retreat, what will happen is the unit will retreat back to what they call the HQ Refuge, which is within 1 hex of the headquarters unit, unless it's closer than 3 hexes to the HQ, then it will come off the map. So with that being the case, there's plenty of distance here. They're going to go ahead and retreat to here, and the 2nd Battalion will go ahead and take the Crossroads. So the road is open, although the 2 flank attacks did not go off very well. The rest of the division back here is going to move up. Let's see, we got 1, 2, 3. He'll go here. 1.5, 2.5, 3. And he'll end up here with the Pioneers. And now the headquarters is really limited to advancing no further up the road than here because of this break in the road. So that's as far forward as the headquarters is going to be able to get prior to this overpass getting repaired. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the extent of its command radius. And we do have a bicycle battalion here with a pretty decent movement mode, or movement allowance of 10. It's trucks, so that would be 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Put them all the way out here. Do we want to do that or not? Now, one last thing, that's all of the units that have moved and or attacked. The one last thing I want to do is clear up his logistical tail. It's all the way back here with 3rd Fallschirmjäger, and I would have preferred to move 3rd Fallschirmjäger, but we will move these guys. 1, 2. We're going to shorten this tail as much as we can, and it is also going to now uncross the streams with 3rd Fallschirmjäger. And then we'll take a hit because they're in ghost mode for the next activation, the next snafu roll, which will hopefully be momentarily as we get a 2nd activation. But then after that, we'll be in a better situation than we were previously. It's always a good idea to try to keep the the logistical tails here as short as possible. The optimal distance is 5 to 15 hexes, so keeping it as short here is good, because beyond here, between the trains and the map edge, remember, that does not count for crossing the streams. So with that done, we apply any isolation effects, which we have none. We'll go ahead and remove our objective markers, and I believe we are just left with rolling for fatigue. Now, we made several attacks, which is a 3 or less to increase fatigue. So here goes the fatigue roll for 12th Volks Grenadier. It is a 6. I think I might have rather had that in this next roll. So no fatigue is accrued. They remain at fatigue level 0. Now for the big one, and that is a second activation. They need a 4. As you can see here, they need a 4 or greater for a second activation. Here we go. And I would have gladly have reversed those two results. So that 2 fails to get them a second activation, which means that 12th Volks Grenadier is going to be done. While they did manage to poke a hole in the American lines here of the 99th, they really didn't accomplish as much as they could have. And they're actually not in a very good position for the rest of the German divisions that are following on. So a mixed to disappointing activation or first day for the 12th Volks Grenadier here. However, the Americans will take that, and they'll take any break they can get early in the game, and the activation is going to switch back to the Americans now. Now, with the front sort of ruptured here, the Americans are going to attempt to get the 99th to activate and get a second activation to try to adjust and react to this and see if they can close that opening again. Now, in order to do that, you can see on the headquarters here, they're going to need a 5 or 6 on the die to be eligible for that second activation, and the die roll is a 6. So 99th is going to get into the action here, and now it's over to Snafu. They are in prepared defense. They're going to maintain prepared defense. Their combat trains are off to the west over here. They are in optimal range. It is complete. So it's over to the Snafu roll. They are fatigue level 0. They are not coordinated, and they're not mixed, because remember, 99th and 2nd Infantry Division here are buddies, which means you also don't have to worry about crossing the streams. So they do have a -2 for the game-specific US penalty. It's at optimal distance, which makes it a -1. They are not ghosted. They're not crossing the streams. It does use tracks, though, so that's going to bring it back down to a -2. -2 for the 99th. The best they can achieve is a partial, so really they're only interested in getting a 5 or better on this roll. And somebody's living right, because they got exactly what they needed. That's 5 -2 gives them a 3, and that is a partial activation. So that's going to be half movement, and their artillery, they've got 4 organic points plus 2 assigned. Prepared defense halves that to a 3. And now they'll get 1 objective marker. Do they place it, yes or no? I think what they are going to do, you know what, they will. Let's go ahead and place it right here on the Crossroads, and we will begin the activation. Let's see. First thing I'm going to do is up north here at the very edge of the screen. They have a couple of battalions assisting or supporting the 2nd Infantry Division up here. We want to get these guys back to the south ASAP. So they're going to go, one will go to here, and the other one will, yeah, he'll fall over there. So they'll both go there. This battalion is going to withdraw over the stream, 1 hex. And do we leave the engineers out there or not? No, we'll leave the engineers here for now. We'll leave those 2 battalions in position as well, because we don't want to get too close to the headquarters unit. Otherwise, it's going to cause any problems if the Germans are able to force a retreat on them. We are going to get the battalion that retreated back to its deployed side. And where do we go with him? I think we may push him. Yeah, he's prepared. We'll go ahead and slide him down there. And now I think we're going to leave 2nd Battalion where he is. The 3rd Battalion, though, is going to come up the rail tracks for 1 and then over here for 2, so that he can still exert a zone of control along here as well as the Crossroads. We're not going to be making any attacks, but we do have 3 artillery points to use. So you know what that means. The 3rd Battalion is actually going to use 2 artillery points to drop. Let's see, we'll get back to where you can see this a little better. We're going to use 2 artillery points to attack Conf Group Holtz here. It's a red AV unit, but it's dual, and it's not yellow, which means this is a nice opportunity to try to attrit the unit here. It is 2 artillery points. I'll get 2 rolls. They're in terrain, so it's a 4 or better to get a hit. And the American artillery, living up to its reputation, scores 2 hits on Conf Group Holtz. That's going to take him from 4 steps down to 2 steps. And we're going to spend our last artillery point over here with 2nd Battalion. They're going to shoot at the first. Actually, they're going to shoot at the battalion that attacked them. That would be the 2nd Battalion here. So 2nd Battalion, they're in terrain, same thing, 4, 5, or 6, and a 2 misses, but that's okay. I'll take the 2 hits on Conf Group Holtz any day in exchange for that. Other than that, I think we are just about done with the 99th's 2nd activation. So now we'll remove the objective marker. We did shoot some artillery. We placed an objective marker, so that's going to be a 1. Will increase the fatigue. The fatigue roll is a 2, and that is going to end the 99th's activity for the first turn on the 16th. So back to the Germans. With CCR of the 9th Armored Division and CCA of the 9th Armored Division, the only American formations left to activate, the Germans would like to try to get established on the west bank of the Our River here before CCR has a chance to activate and respond and throw any more difficult roadblocks in their way. As right now, this is a very weakly defended sector for the Americans, just a few scattered companies along the line. So with that in mind, the Germans are going to activate the 560th Volks Grenadier Division up here. Now their trains are on map, and they are back here stacked with, they're way off to the east here, just a little bit to the right of the camera. They are right over here, and they are stacked with the 116th Panzer. So once again, traffic jams in the rear for the Germans. They will be crossing the streams. However, trains are on the map. They have a complete MSR. We are not going to place them in prepared defense. They're not mixed or coordinated with anyone, so it is on to the snafu roll. Their snafu modifiers, the 560th is fresh actually, so they will get a +1. They're not coordinated or mixed. They get another +1 for the game specific. And let's see, I think they are at optimal distance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Just at optimal distance gives them a +3. However, they are crossing the streams, which is going to lower it to +2, and they are using tracks from the headquarters here. So it's going to drop back down to a +1 on the snafu roll for the 560th. They'll need a 6 or better on the dice to get a full activation, and they roll a 7. That's going to give them 2 objective markers and a full activation. Now they need to decide what they want to do with this. Right now, they've got 2 battalions of the 112th Infantry Regiment here, and they have a small company from the 110th out here at Heinerscheid. They'd like to get out to Skyline Drive here and try to cut that road. And they also want to deal with these battalions here. The problem is they're fairly well spread out, so I won't be able to cover all of them, or even 2 of them, with a double objective zone. The 560th has no support, which is going to make attacking a little less easy, since they won't be getting that +1. Let's see, I think we will we'll definitely go after the company out here, and let's go ahead and let's go ahead and place the other objective marker there. And we'll be able to move up, and maybe we'll just try to pin the battalion east of the river here. They have 3 organic artillery points, and the 560th has 2 additional assigned, so that will give them 5 artillery points for this activation. Let's see how we're going to want to do this. The Pioneers, they're going to move here for 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to bring the 2nd Battalion directly across the river for 2, and that will make an attack here on the 2nd Battalion of the 112th Regiment, located at the village of Liller. So, for the attack, we've got an action rating 3. They are not supported. Again, if they had any support, they would have dropped it as they crossed the river. No double objective zone. They are getting an assist, and we will spend 1 artillery point in a suppression mission. So it's going to be 3 plus 3 is 6. On the defender's side, Americans have a good action rating of 4. The 112th Regiment does have some support thanks to the new counters included in Panzer's Last Stand. That's going to be a 5. They are in prepared defense, which makes it a 6, and there's no terrain, so it looks like it's going to be a straight up 6 minus 6. It's a +0 on the combat chart. So in order to retreat this unit, the Germans are going to have to roll really well. They're going to have to roll an 11, and they came close with a 9. The 9 is an attacker. It's an A1 if the defender's in prepared defense, which they are. So 1 step loss to the German attackers and a situational retreat, which will be ignored and converted into a step loss for the 2nd Battalion. So another exchange as the Americans hold their positions, and we move on with the rest of the activation. Send him 2, 3, 4. We'll slide these guys here, and then we'll move up there. The headquarters is actually going to come down here. make sure that everyone across the river is staying within command radius. And that's going to leave this battalion to go 2.5. And now the 1st of the 1128th Grenadiers will make an attack on Able Company here at Heinerscheid. They are going to spend 3 artillery points in a destruction barrage on the company there. Since it's only 2 steps, this is their best chance of destroying the unit and taking the hex. Since they are in prepared defense, as well as being in terrain, it's a 4, 5, or 6 to inflict a step loss. So we'll roll the destruction barrage first. There's a 4 and a 1, and the last shot is a 6. So they do inflict the 2 steps, destroy the American company. Now you'll see, I zoom in here, you'll see the yellow circle around the action rating unit. That indicates that this unit is non-rebuildable. So with this company gone, it is gone for good. And you'll see that most of the 110th Infantry Regiment's units in this game are non-rebuildable because they're broken down into companies. I think 2 of the 3 battalions are like that, which makes it very difficult to keep the 110th in the game for very long. With the attack successful, the 1st Battalion simply marches into the village following the big artillery barrage. And I think, oh, that's not quite going to do it. What we need to do is we're going to take the 560th trains off to the east, and we are going to move them. The question is finding someplace where they are 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the way, which is going to be difficult. And again, this is, I think, one of the strengths of the BCS, and particularly this game, the at-start situation for the Germans, the number of roads available for the number of formations they have in the area to keep from end up crossing streams and whatnot is a real puzzle for the Germans to solve. You'll spend certainly a good deal of time trying to figure out the best way to untangle your logistical tail there. With that, I don't see anything else we're going to do with the 560th, so we can get rid of that. We'll go into the cleanup and we will remove the objective markers. We do have to roll for fatigue. They made 2 attacks, so a 3 or less will result in them losing their fresh status. And unfortunately, they roll a 1. That's going to bring them down to a fatigue level 0. And that matters because they would have gotten a +1 to their reactivation die roll, which would have been a 3 or better instead of now a 4, 5, or 6. The 560th is going to continue to press forward and attempt a second activation here. So a 4, 5, or 6. And they roll a 6, so they get their second activation. We are not going to go into prepared defense. We have our trains on the map here, and the MSR is complete. So it is back to the snafu, and a little different modifiers now. They no longer get the fresh. They have fatigue 0. They are not mixed or coordinated. Game specific gives them a +1. Optimal distance gives them a +2. The trains are in ghost mode, which brings it down to +1. They are still crossing the streams, unfortunately, because you've got 2nd Panzer here running up to its trains back here. So along this section here, they are crossing the streams with 2nd Panzer. So that's going to bring them to 0. And we still have some tracks along the MSR here, which means a -1 on the snafu roll. So a little worse situation for the 560th as far as getting an activation this time. They will need, well, there's a 4. -1 is a 3. They do get a partial, which is something, I suppose, better than nothing. They are going to have 3 artillery points +2. We'll have that to 3 this time. And now they have half movement. So let's see what we're going to do here. You know, I think what we might do, we only get one objective marker. And the question is, do we want to make an attack? And I think we do. We're going to, again, we're going to continue hitting the 2nd Battalion here. Although, yeah, we'll hit the 2nd Battalion there. And in this case, I think we will spend all 3 in an artillery destruction barrage. So they're in clear terrain, which would normally be a 3. However, they're in prepared defense, which raises that up to a 4 or better to get a hit. So let's see if they can inflict a few step losses here on the Americans. They've got a 5 and a 3, so that's 1 hit. And then the third shot is a 2nd hit. So that's 2 step losses on the Americans, bringing that a total of 3 now for the 2nd Battalion. Now for the actual combat attack. The 2nd Battalion is attacking, assisted by the Pioneers. So we've got 3. There's no support, no double objective zone, no artillery. They're assisted, and that's going to be +1. And I think that just brings them to a 4. Yeah, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, so a 4. And the Americans have a 4 action rating, and they are in prepared defense, and supported is a 6. So it's a -2 to the attack roll. This will not be pleasant for the Germans. It is a 7, -2 is a 5, which actually is good enough. That's going to limit them to a loss of 1 step from the 2nd Battalion. So he's down 2 steps. The Americans are now down 3 steps. That's going to, I think that's going to be it for the activation, other than flipping the ghost trains back over. And now rolling for fatigue. We made some attacks, so it's a 3 or less. And it is a 3, so the 560th is quickly increasing its fatigue level, going from fresh to fatigue level 1 here all in this first turn. And with that, the 560th is finished. I'll go ahead and update the loss charts, and we will swing it back over to the Americans for their activation. Back on the American side, they have all of 2 formations left to activate. Both of them are part of the 9th Armored Division. They have CCR, which we saw up in the central sector north of Clairvaux, and CCA of the 9th in the south. And they're going to go ahead and activate CCA right now. And the unit is has its trains on map, although they are just a hex or 2 off the west edge here down this road. So they have their trains on the map. It is a complete MSR. They're currently in prepared defense. And, you know, I think I am going to drop that prepared defense because we need to do some movement here. Most of the combat command is located back here. We've got a battalion, an armored recon battalion, and a tank battalion back here at Waldbillig that are going to need to move up to get into position to make some counterattacks. Also, at the beginning of the turn, if you'll recall, the Americans were able to roll and get 4 air points, which I have not used yet. They function pretty much identically to artillery points. And I think what we're going to do is, as part of the CCA's counterattack against the Germans coming across the river here, we'll probably give the air support to them in their upcoming activations. But that's first assuming they get an activation. We're going to have to check the snafu table. They have a fatigue of 0. They are not coordinated or mixed. The game specific gives them a -2. They are at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They're at optimal distance, which is -1. It's not ghosted. They're not crossing the streams. However, we are using tracks. So it's back to a -2 for the snafu die roll modifier, which means they're going to need a 9 or better to get that full activation we're looking for. And far from it, they end up with a 3. -2 is going to give them a fail. Now, I'm not going to do a failure flip here because they have fatigue 0. There's nothing that the flip will do for them. Now, the question is, do we want to try a second activation? And absolutely we do. Now, unfortunately, they only get a second activation on a 5 or better. So they managed to get a 6, which will give them a second shot on the snafu table. Everything remains the same. Considering the situation with the -2 modifier they're going to have, they're going to get a 9. Should they go back into, well, we cannot establish a prepared defense in the second activation, so that's not a consideration. Let's just roll. Hopefully they roll well, and incredibly enough, they roll the exact same thing they rolled the first time. So back-to-back failures for Combat Command A. That is going to do it for a very short and essentially non-existent activation. That is unfortunate for the Americans in this sector, considering how few troops they have. But that is part of that's part of the BCS, and it is part of last Blitzkrieg. I will say that the replayability for this game, and I really think the series as a whole, but particularly the replayability of last Blitzkrieg is off the charts. The number of games you'll play where something like this happens, where Combat Command A of the 9th Armored on the 16th December does nothing, are probably fairly small. It could have just as easily gotten 2 full activations, in which case the situation down here is going to look a lot different. So there's no, while there are certain strategies you want to pursue, I don't know that there's anything such as a perfect strategy in this system, because you just never know whether or not your units are going to be able to move and do what you need them to do. And I think that's a real strength of the system. So with that unimpressive activation out of the way, it swings back to the Germans. The Germans are going to stay on the central sector here. And again, same reasoning behind activating the 560th last opportunity is they want to get established on the west bank of the Our before CCR up here has a chance to come down and make that more difficult than it needs to be. So with that, they are going to activate their first Panzer division of the turn so far, and that would be the 2nd Panzer Division. Now, its trains are on the map and the MSR is complete. They are back up here and they are stacked with the 26th Volks Grenadier trains. Now, with the movement of the 560th combat trains forward, you now have 3 divisions trying to supply themselves along this single secondary road here. And this is just an absolute nightmare as far as logistics go in the game. It's going to take a while to get the streams uncrossed. And really the only solution for it is to get some bridges up over the river and push westward. So that's exactly what the Germans are going to try to do. They are not going to prepare defense for the 2nd Panzer, and that's going to bring us up to their snafu roll. The 2nd Panzer is fresh, which gives them a +1. They are not coordinated or mixed. They do get +1 for the game specific, making it +2. Trains are at optimal distance, +3. They are not ghosted, but the streams are crossed, which is a +2, and no track. So +2 to the snafu roll here. They roll a 9, getting a full activation easily. That's going to give them 2 objective markers, which they are going to place both of them out here to the west at Marnock on Baker Company of the 1st Battalion 110th Infantry Regiment. And now they are going to have their Grenadier battalions hop in their rubber boats, cross the stream, and press forward. Let's see how we want to handle this. So these guys are going to come across here for 2, 3, 4, so they can get to just there. And unfortunately, I don't think the others are in a position to. I think we may end up having to stack some guys. That's 2, 4. Yep, I hate doing this as the Germans in particular, but stacking can really bite you. That's going to be 2. That's the only way we can get an assisted attack on the village here, because we cannot reach this hex here with the movement we have available. Bring him down 1/2, 2 1/2, 3, 4. And then it's just a matter of the vehicles queuing up at the bridge here at Dassburg. See, that 12 command radius is nice for the Panzer divisions. 2, 4, 12. But we will go ahead and move him forward, make sure that keeps us 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's still optimal distance to the trains back at Artsfeld. All right, and I guess technically I should have done this when the 2nd Battalion moved up, but the 2nd Battalion is going to make an attack on the American company at Marnock. The 2nd Panzer, I forgot to put their artillery points out, but they have 5 artillery points, 3 organic and 2 assigned. So it's only a 3 strength infantry company there. The combat is really going to end up being about a net +2. They are in prepared defense, which means that in order to take the hex and inflict any losses on the defenders, the Germans would need to roll like a 9, which is not all that great of odds. So instead, we will go ahead and use our 3 points of artillery as a destruction barrage and hope we get lucky and eliminating the Americans. Otherwise, we are probably going to end up losing a couple of German steps. So they are in prepared defense. It is a 4, 5, or 6 to inflict a step loss. Here we go. Well, so far so good. They've got 2 steps on them, and if they get lucky on this last one, they'll have blasted that company out of the game. They did not, but they did inflict 2 step losses on them. So now we will proceed with the rest of the resolution of the attack. The attackers have their support dropped because they're on the other side of the river, so no support. They do get a double objective zone, which their action rating is a 4. So that's going to make it a 5. They have no artillery. The assist makes it a 6. The defenders have an action rating of 4. They do have support with the 1/10. Yes, they have support, which makes it a 5. Their prepared defense is 6, and they are in terrain, making it a 7. So it is a 6 minus 7. It's a -1 modifier on the attack roll. Now the Germans can still, there's only 1 step left of the company. So if the Germans roll an 8 or better, they will in fact destroy the company and take the hex. And boy, that's what they did, and then some. An 11 on the attack roll becomes a 10. That is an attacker loss due to the prepared defense and a situational retreat for the defender, which becomes a step loss because they are in prepared defense. So that's going to eliminate the last step of Baker Company. They will join Able Company in the dead pile. And the 2nd Battalion will take 1 loss and occupy the hex, which will then be marked with a traffic marker. However, that's not really applicable in this circumstance because all of the 2nd Panzer Division units that have moved or that can move have moved. So that's it. They did manage to actually take that village. So all in all, a successful first activation for 2nd Panzer Division, and they only lost a single infantry step. We'll do this, and now we need to roll for fatigue. Since they made the attack, it is a 3 or less for fatigue. Unfortunately, they lose their fresh status, which is that's a big deal, losing fresh status. Not only do you lose the +1 on your snafu roll, but you also lose a +1 to get that 2nd activation. And as you will see, 2nd activations are really the way to make some big gains and do some damage in this system. Now that completes the first activation. The next question is, do they want to attempt a 2nd activation? And I think they are going to try to go for it. The 2nd Panzer is a 4 or better, so a 50-50 shot of getting a 2nd activation, and they do not. So the Germans are a little slow out of the blocks so far here on the 16th of December. That was a successful initial activation for 2nd Panzer. They've cut the Skyline Drive here, and they're closing in on Clairvaux. Had they gotten a 2nd activation, they would have then been able to throw these infantry battalions at the defenders right here at Clairvaux, and or prevented any interference from Combat Command R of 9th Armored Division. But that is not to be. So that's going to do it for this activation, and it'll be over to the Americans to activate the aforementioned CCR of the 9th. All right, the last formation the Americans have is CCR 9 of the 9th here. This could end up being a very quick activation. As you can see, they are used. So in order to get a 2nd activation, they're going to have to roll a 5 or 6. Let's do that first and see what happens here. Well, they ended up with a 2, which is not going to do it. And that means that CCR of the 9th is officially done. And that's going to do it for the Americans. They are out of formations. The Germans still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They've got 10 formations left to activate. So what I think I will do is I will wrap up this episode here, and we'll come back with the next episode will be an all-German affair. So far this turn, you can see the Germans have started to make some crossings of the Our in the central sector here. They've taken out a couple of U.S. companies there. Down further south, we've got the 7th Army attack here, which has not been terribly successful. Other than that, we haven't seen much activity here between St. Vith and Clairvaux, but that's going to change with the 62nd Volks Grenadier, the 116th Panzer. Now you'll notice they are used, so only a 50-50 shot, actually a 2/3 chance because they're fresh of getting 116th Panzer to activate this turn. And then we've got 1st SS Corps way up here in the north back of the front lines. So there's still quite a bit for the Germans to do, and we'll see how that unfolds in the next episode. Before we go, let's take a look at the loss charts. Here are the loss charts. We'll start off taking a look at the 99th Infantry Division. You can see the thing of greatest interest here is the fact that both steps of the 801st Tank Destroyer Battalion have been eliminated by Kampfgruppe Holtz when the 12th Volks Grenadier attacked. Other than that, the division's in pretty good shape, just a single step loss from several of the battalions that were defending against the 12th Volks Grenadier. For the 110th Infantry Regiment of the 28th Infantry Division, you can see their tank battalion was started the campaign scenario at roughly half strength here, but 2 companies have been fully eliminated, and those are non-rebuildable companies. There's only 2 steps left in that 1st battalion of the regiment. You can see here the 3rd battalion breaks down the same way with another 7 steps. The engineers are located actually in Clairvaux itself with 4 steps, and then the regimental reserve of the 2nd battalion located west of Clairvaux. Now on the German side, the 2nd Panzer Division only took 1 loss in its attacks this turn, and that was from the 1st battalion of the 304th. However, you can see both of their Panzer battalions are a little under strength, as well as all of their Panzer Grenadier battalions and the Pioneer battalion starting a little under strength. They do have some reinforcements that will arrive later in the battle. And if we look at the backside here we go, Kampfgruppe, or 12th Volks Grenadier with Kampfgruppe Holtz down to half strength, and the 2nd Battalion of the 48th also at half strength. Again, you can see the infantry battalions in this division did start the campaign a little under strength. So we'll leave it there. Thanks for watching again. Hope you are enjoying this. And as always, any questions or comments about any rules issues or why I did what I did with certain units over the course of the game, put them below and I will do my best to answer them. Take care, and we'll see you next time.